The majority of the instructors are internationally certified by CHIPSAS and come from practitioners. How long is the study period on this program? The normal study period is 4 years or 8 semesters. This program also accepts transfer students through credit transfer schemes via the recognition of prior learning pathway. For partnerships, the undergraduate program in public financial accounting has established partnerships and actively participate in national and even global associations such as the Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, Department of Accounting Educators, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants or ACCA, the Asian Associations of Open Universities or AAOU, and the International Council for Open and Distance Education or ICDE. The undergraduate program in public financial accounting was founded in 2015 and commenced operation in 2017. It is supported by the latest technology, allowing students to pursue higher education while working, enabling students to advance their career or maintaining their current ones. We can proudly say that this program has achieved numerous milestones. Accredited by the National Accreditation Agency for Higher Education. 11 out of 13 lecturers of the undergraduate program in public financial accounting are internationally certified by CHIPSAS. Its students have achieved national and even international recognition. 4. An active academic atmosphere with collaborative research between lecturers and students resulting in reputable publication. Furthermore, the undergraduate program in public financial accounting also contributes to bringing about change by organizing the competition of public sector innovations or COPSI. This aligns with the vision of the undergraduate program in public financial accounting to produce world-class, sustainable graduates in public sector accounting who contribute to the global order through the open and distance higher education supported by the latest technology. This makes me proud of the progress and agility of this program. I am increasingly confident in pursuing a career in the public sector, and I am ready to be an agent of change, building the future of public accounting to accelerate better public services.
Okay, I will start this lecturing activity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Good morning, all participants, and good afternoon, Prof. Zahirul.
Thank you.
Allow me to commence the lecturing activity this morning. Dear Miss Pesi Suryani MAK, Head of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program Universitas Terbuka. Dear Professor Zahirul Hoque, Professor of Accounting, School of Accounting, Information System and Supply Chain, RMIT University Australia. Dear Lecturer of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program Universitas Terbuka, and our esteemed students of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program Universitas Terbuka. Praise to be Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, for it is by His grace that we are able to gather virtually for this international lecturing session organized by the Public Financial Accounting Study Program, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Terbuka, in collaboration with the Forum Dosen Akuntansi Publik. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ria Ekanindya Widyaningsih, a lecturer of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program, and I will be serving as your Master of Ceremony for today's lecturing session. Before we proceed, I would like to highlight that today's event is the second session of our international lecturing series. The first session, held on 1st December 2025, discussed the topic Sustainability Management Accounting. And today, we will continue the scientific activities with themes that is highly relevant to the public sector, namely budgeting, contemporary budgeting methodologies in the public sector. To formally commence our event, let us begin by reciting Bismillahirrohmanirrohim. Before we begin the presentation season, let us first capture this precious moment. I will guide you to a virtual photo session starting on the count of 3. And ICT, please help me with the screenshot. All right. I will count 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Once again. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by our guest speaker today, Prof. Zahirul Hoque. He will discuss the topic of budgeting, contemporary budgeting methodologies in the public sector. I would like to invite Mr. Chris Setio Yulianto, SAMACC, as the moderator to facilitate our discussion session today. Mr. Chris, please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Ria. Hello, good morning, Prof. Zahirul. Thank you very much to willingness uh, give material for this session. And welcome to International Lecturing again in session 2, Prof. Zahirul. We are truly honored to have all of you here today in this second session of our international academic event. So, after previously we carry out the first lecturing on Monday, Prof. Yeah, and then allow me to respectfully welcome the head of the public financial and Forum of Public Accounting lectures and all lectures, practitioners, students, and participants attending today's session. So, before we begin this material, we kindly remind all participants to first, please keep your microphone mute during the presentation. And second, use the raise hand feature if you wish to ask a question during the Q&A session. Third, after being invited by the moderator, you may unmute your microphone to speak. And last, not least, but not least, alternatively, you may also submit your question through the chat box. Thank you for joining us and for your continued support for academic development and global collaboration. So today's session focused on a highly important and relevant topic in the field of public sector financial management, namely budgeting. We call contemporary budgeting methodologies in public sector. It's our great pleasure to welcome our honorable speaker, Professor Zahirul Hoque, Professor of Accounting at the School of Accounting, Information System and Supply Chain, RMIT University, Australia. Prof. Zahirul is a globally recognized scholar in public sector accounting, performance measurement, and contemporary budgeting, and he has authored more than 12 international books and numerous Scopus Index journal articles. So we are truly privileged to learn from your expertise today, Prof. Zahirul. So
Thank
next, to make the best use our time, we will proceed to the presentation session, Prof. Maybe session format. First presentation. You give 19 minutes, and we will next step is discussion and Q&A. We have around 30 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Zahirul Hoque. Professor, the screen is yours.
you, Chris, and thank you for your kind words about my profile. And I'm very fortunate to be known to many of you, and I'm very pleased to offer my. I don't say I'm an expertise to my colleagues in Indonesia. I hope you will enjoy this event and also lectures. Today's topic is let me show you the screen. So can you see the screen now?
Not yet, Prof.
Okay, so I have to go back to again share the screen. You can see now
Yeah, clear,
slides.
Prof. Yeah, showing on
Okay,
screen, Prof. On screen.
okay, that's good. So as you can see, today's topic is contemporary budgeting methodologies in the public sector. I'm not sure, Chris, whether it will take 90 minutes or 70 minutes, 60 minutes, but I will try my best to give as much as examples needed to deliver this topic so that everyone can take away something today from these sessions. Because budgeting is truly a fundamental tool for every organization. Even we think about individual, we cannot avoid budget. So it's very important for us to know how budgeting is helping organizations, both public and private sector, in delivering public value. When I say public value, how budgeting through its various tools and techniques improve managerial decision-making process in organizations, which can maximize the benefits of the community as a whole. Because it is public sector oriented, so first I will introduce you to various concepts in general so that everyone can understand the basic or fundamentals of budgeting, and then I will focus on public sector issues, including various budgeting tools in Western countries public sector organizations use, and how they can be translated into management control systems for the public sector, where value is created through various government services. So as you can see, there are several bullet points. So first of all, I will focus mainly on budgets in general. What is budgeting and what does it do in organizations, And then I'll talk about the importance of public sector budgeting, and then objectives of budget preparation in the public sector, and various approaches to the budgeting process, and also understanding the financial planning systems in organizations. Then I will introduce you to four widely used budget methodologies in the public sector: incremental budgets, continuous rolling budgets, activity-based budgeting, zero-based budgeting, and then I will try to conclude the whole session by looking into public sector budgeting and accountability, how accountability is aligned with the public sector financial planning and control systems. So the last half an hour, we all participate in the sessions, reflecting on what lessons budgeting we learned, and then followed by questions and conclusions. Okay, I think this is everybody's cup of tea, as I mentioned, that when it comes to budgeting for organizations, it's all about concentrated on information about revenues, cost, and expenses. These all are important in formulating budget. So when you see budget is all about future planning or future courses of action for an organization. So accountants normally responsible for presenting management about budgeting goals in financial terms. So here budgeting is all about quantitative expression of future planning and operations. So budget is responsibility is important, and it is in general for any organizations is looks after by a group of people. Some organization they have budget committees, some organization they have budget administrations or planning and coordination team. So the whole idea is the responsibility, accounting and management, because through budgets we can make people responsible. This is why we call it sometimes responsibility accounting. So you can see that there is a significant relationship between budgeting and accountability. We'll talk about more later on. So what are the benefits? Benefits, of course, that it is important for everyone in the organizations to think about what is the requirement for a particular period to plan ahead. So everybody in the organization must know about their expectations so that they can achieve the organization's goal. So budget provides definite objectives for evaluating performance. So that's the controlling aspect of budgeting. I should have mentioned that every budget has two, basically I would say three fundamental dimension. One is the planning dimension, where organizations make plans for the future and quantify them in terms of monies. And then second is coordination or communication. So everyone in the organizations, they interact with each other, communicating with each other through budget planning, through budgetary objectives. And then last but not least, final part is all about controlling. Controlling, I mean evaluating performance. So that is also part of the whole budget cycle. As I mentioned already, budget helps coordination of activities within the businesses, and also results in greater management awareness of the entity's operations. Budget is also a motivational tool because people in the organizations, they are motivated through budgeting goals and objectives. Excuse me. So my question to the audience, you don't have to answer or raising your hand, just think about it. We talk about lots of benefits about budgeting. Which of the four is not a benefit of budgeting? So I give you 2 minutes, think about it. So you save your responses within your head, and then I'll reveal the answer. Then you can see whether you are answer was correct. So as you can see, it's not a benefit. So we have management can plan ahead. An early warning system is provided for potential problems. It enables disciplinary action to be taken at every level of responsibility. The coordination of activities is facilitated. So the answer is C. So, and you might wonder why it is not a benefit. As you know, budgeting is not like a policing everyone. Budgeting is all about motivating people, encouraging people. It's not about taking any disciplinary action. So this is not a budgetary benefit. So that's important. So we talk about all positive aspects of budgeting. There should not be any negative aspect in any form of management control systems in the organizations. Okay, now you can see here the title is Essentials and Effective. There are two separate things. So we can think about what are the essentials of budgeting and whether budgeting is effective or not is an important issue for any organizations. Budgeting, and what does it mean effective? Effective means that when you make a budget for organizational various activities, divisions or departments or people, it is really important that people use these budgets for their day-to-day operation. Then it becomes effective. But if people do not use their budgeting or anything to work on their goals and success, so people ignore budgets, then it becomes ineffective. And if people are not happy, it is also ineffective. If people are happy with the budget process or budget policy, then it is effective. So I hope that everyone understood the difference between effectiveness and non-effectiveness. So one way you can make the budget effective to align budgeting with a sound organizational structure. Because some organization they ignore this aspect because if there is no alignment between organizational structure, I mean when you think about structure, it's all about defining authority and responsibility for each and every operation for each and every individual. So you have to give authority and responsibility. So without authority and responsibility together, you cannot make budgeting effective. Some organizations, even public sector agencies, budget is highly centralized and they don't talk to people about their goals and they don't give any, they are given responsibility, but they're not given any authority. So this is what we call it misalignment. So it is not an effective budgeting. So there should be a significant alignment between authority and responsibility. And a budget is an effective tool if it is based on research and analysis with realistic goals. You cannot aim for very high if they are unrealistic to achieve. So that's also important. How you can achieve this? You have to do a lot of research about the budgets, what was done before, what was done in the last 5 years or so, or what is going to happen in the future, either short term or long term or medium term. So you need to do a lot of research. You cannot just sit down with a computer and Excel, then make some calculation and budgeting is done. No, that's not the way you can do effective budgeting. As I mentioned before, it should be accepted by all levels of management. If you think about people, sorry about that, people, if you think about people at the practice level, I mean, people who are involved in achieving goals and objectives. So they are the people who should accept budget. As I said, if they don't accept, they will just ignore them. So that's also important. So, and the next question is for any organizations, you name it, length of the budget period. And traditionally, and I think it's most commonly, budgeting is done for 1 year. And it is supplemented with monthly and quarterly budgets. And it depends on the types of budget. If you think about annual planning and control, then you have 1 year. And if you think about capital investment or capital expenditure budget, it can go over 1 or more than 3 years, 5 years. So it is all about giving and long enough to provide an attainable goal and minimize our cyclical fluctuations, because what we are now living in a world, everything is uncertain, isn't it? So it's very often we see the changes in environment internationally and locally. So we can see competition, huge competition. We can see political uncertainty. We can see international events. They all affect organizational operations, including budgeting. So you have to give enough time to people think about their attainable goals and minimize any disruptions. So short enough for reliable estimates, of course, and you also think about this, how you can reliably estimate because of uncertainty. And here we talk about risk, isn't it? So risk is also important element for budgeting. Okay. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you, the basics of budgeting now, because it's all about public sector. So I'm going to talk about more on public sector issues here. So what I want to just change my screen a little bit. Yeah. So in a public sector environment, there are 4 levels of accountability that you can see. First is staff accountable to management and to the board through chief executive officer. So if you think about governance in a public sector agency, so I start with the below and lower level or practice level staff or employees. They are accountable to management. I mean, line managers or senior managers, and then the next hierarchy is Chief Executive Officer (CEO), and CEO is responsible to the board. And on top of everything is the public interest, is the public in general, because all public sector organizations are owned by the public. This is why we call it public sector. Secondly, in a public sector agencies, I'm sure I think it is the same practice in Indonesia, in Australia, because now we have private sector style of management systems in public sector organizations. So they appoint a CEO, and that CEO is accountable to the government appointed board. So government appointed board is also within the legislative and regulatory environment by the government. In Australia, we have, like Indonesia, we have federal government or Commonwealth government, we have state government, and then we have local government or local city council. So that the appointment is done by government level. And then we have members of the board. The members of the board are accountable to the minister. So in Australia, like Indonesia, we have minister. Minister is the um, political CEO, I would say, of an organizations belong to a particular ministry, and then members of the board are accountable to the minister. And as you can see, when it comes to public interest, public accountability, and the minister is accountable to parliament. I'm sure I think Indonesia has the same framework. So these are the four levels of accountability in public sector organizations. So what we have done is like, we talk about budgeting and we talk about accountability because as I mentioned before, budgeting and accountability, they are highly interrelated, they are really correlated. Now, we talk about this budgeting mechanism, how budget is prepared in the public sector. So you might wonder, is it something different from private sector? No, it is not different, but the way they make the budget is fundamentally different from private sector. So here, first point you can see, in general, it's like a private sector organizations. We don't have any revenue streams selling unless it is a commercial oriented public sector agencies. Let's talk about non-profit making public sectors. They don't have any revenues here through selling products and services, but they must establish some income level. If you are a government agency, government businesses, you need some kind of income or revenue, money. So they need to look at what is the requirement, what sort of money they are needing from government or any other sources in a given period. And then second is planning service expenditure levels. So what should be the services expenditures, and then how they can manage these expenses. And then the third process is authorization of future expenditures, because every transaction in terms of future operations or current operations, they must be authorized by the relevant authority, relevant person. And then third aspect, they look into the control of income and expenditure. When it comes to control, is like monitoring and assessing the performance of revenue streams and expenditures. And then communication device. So how budgeting can be used as a communicating tool across the organizations. The next process is all about focusing attention. So for focusing attention, when it comes to focusing attention, is all about setting standards for performance evaluation. You have formulated a goal and you set a standard and then look into the actual and then do some monitoring or assessment evaluation there to see whether they achieve their goal or not. If they don't achieve their goal, then you need to focus attention on that particular areas or sector. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentations, motivation of managers. Budget also works as a motivational tools, and when organization make budgets, they need to look into this area whether it is a motivational tool or demotivational tool. You don't use budget as a scary mechanism, as a scary tool for people. Think about, I'll give you one example. Think about university context. We lecturers, our primary job is to deliver lectures or to provide high quality lifelong learning experiences for our students. And then university might say, okay, how would you know that you are giving quality lectures and materials to our students? One way we do universally accepted tool is the student satisfaction survey, isn't it? So student satisfaction survey is the main tool. It's a quantitative tool. The only way you can find out some metrics, some numbers to say, oh, I think yes, we are giving quality services because students rate it as highly. So in Australia, like any other country, we use the 1 to 5 rating scale. 5 is the highest, highly satisfied, and 1 is the low satisfied or low satisfactions. And the question is, if university use this as a fundamental tool, the only tool to monitor your performance, and then what happens if you get a lower score, lower satisfaction score? And if you are always scared about this, oh my God, I'm not going to achieve, say, if we have in Australia, in our department here at RMIT, out of 5, college or school standard is 4.5. Out of 5, 4.5. So, but not many people they achieve that score 4.5. On average, we get 4. If you get 4, universities say nothing. If you get below 4, say continuously for a couple of semesters, then university will ask you to provide any explanation. So the my point is whether people use this student satisfaction survey score as a motivational tool or not. And of course, if you set a high target, say 4.5 is, I would say, it's a high target for many people. And at my other universities, when I was there, it was 3.5 average. Now it's raising to 4.5 here at RMIT. So people should not use this particular tool as a scary items. And then if people say, okay, I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to lose my increment or promotion if I don't score high. So that is not a motivational aspect. So budgeting is something like this, you need to think about, okay, whether people like this budget, whether they dislike it. If they dislike it, they will just ignore and they start looking into something else, So that's important. Coordinating the activities of multi-purpose organizations. And every organization has multiple divisions or multiple service centers, service units, and it's important that all activities are coordinated well through budgeting. Okay, now we have done the theoretical and then other process parts. Now I will focus on a few budgeting mechanisms or budgeting tools to share with you, and then see whether they are known to you and whether they make sense. So this is incremental budgeting is, I would say, it is quite common, and in every country, every setting. When it comes to setting budgeting goals for future, we always tend to look into past and try to make some adjustments. Things like whether we need to increase or decrease our allocations compared with the last few years, say 2-3 years, not more than 3 years. So this is what we call it incremental budgeting. So it's all about attempting to make an alteration to expenditure budgets for cost centers from previous year. And as you know, every organization has a cost center. Cost center is they are responsible for costing or expenditure only. They don't do anything about raising any revenue. Their job is to maintain expenditures and managing their expenses. So, because they need money to deliver services to the community or any other operational things they do for public. So here, there's little to enhance accountability because it's very cost-centered focus. Their job is to look into the money they receive and they use them efficiently and economically and effectively. So the problem is about this incremental budgeting because people always look into the past and then do say 5%, 10% increase or plus or minus, and it doesn't give them enough thinking whether 5% is enough or 10% is enough because they don't look into various aspects. So here, probably they look into here alternative method is to receive lower funds for unspent budget. So one of the issue here you can see people try to make sure that they spend the money allocated for a particular period and so they don't lose any money for the next year if they don't spend their money currently allocated. And also because of this, likely to result in wastage and dysfunctional practices. So this is happening to many organizations worldwide, especially in public sector, because you get budget allocation for a particular period, and then you try to spend the money even if you don't need them. When it comes to say towards the end of the financial period, say around June or December, depending on the financial period, and people try to spend the money. So they spend the money sometimes for un or not essential items because their tendency is to spend the money. Otherwise, they will get less allocation for next year. So it is like dysfunctional practices. They are not contributing to organizational effectiveness. Okay, the second mechanisms I would like to share with you is continuous rolling budget, or sometimes we call it rolling budget. So, and it's interesting, and I'm not sure, I haven't got any evidence to what extent public sector organization use this. Some organization they use this, but I'm not sure how many in terms of percentage in Australia. Maybe someone can do these studies in Indonesian context, that kind of budgets they do in the public sector. And that would be interesting to find out what are the tools and techniques when it comes to budgeting Indonesian public sector agencies use. So those of you are interested, that you can do a simple survey, giving them a list of budgeting tools and ask them to what extent they use them. And then you ask them to what extent they use these tools for various organizational decision-making process. And then find out whether they have any strategic alignment there and then finally organizational effectiveness. So organizations generally have long-term running budget plans, mostly 3 years. So nowadays, and people try to avoid long-term goal because every day, every second is uncertain. So people do make budget for a maximum period of 3 years in most public sector organizations. So I will show you an example. How does a rolling budget look like? Take a look this one. So here you can see 3-year budget period, and we have every year we have 4 quarters. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. The first quarter we have, excuse me, and January, February, March, and second quarter, and then they break it down to weekly budget. Weekly. So because if you have an Excel budgeting sheet, and you can quite comfortably make this budget, and they are very useful. So here you can see with each quarter we have 4 weekly estimations and their breakdown. So budgets basically could be quarterly, could be 6 monthly, and followed by weekly, and then half yearly. Up to here, first 2 quarter half yearly, and the second 2 quarter second half of the year, and finally, and they look into the year 3 budget. So how does it work? How we can call it is rolling budget. So what you can see here, that as you can see, as shown with the January operations, here, when they complete the January operations in year 1, and then organizations has rolled forward the budget plan to monthly budget for year 2. So rolling budget means, say, for example, if you got some money from your university for 3 years, then it is not always possible. Okay, you got 3 years allocation and you got every yearly allocation. And if you get yearly allocation, if you don't spend them, and you can roll over the unspent money to the next year. So I'm not sure your university has that kind of policy, but some universities in Australia, I work at long time ago, Griffith University, they said, okay, you must spend the money, there will be no rollover. So every year you have allocation. If you don't spend the full money, then you lose but there will be no rollover. But here, organizations give you 3 years window, and okay, if you have any unspent, you can roll over next year budgets. For example, here, the March operations, say, are completed in year 1, and then you can roll forward this budget plan to build the quarterly budget for quarterly 1 in year 3. So this is how, because you need to budget plan for last year or final year, and then for new budget, then you can roll over the whole ideas. This is quite common in Australia, some public sector organizations, but I'm not sure, and someone might share with us if they know about it in Indonesian context. So what are the advantages of a rolling budget? It's very important for us to think about, okay, do we really need a rolling budget? I think it is important because it breaks the budget process down into more manageable monthly processes rather than a lengthier annual process. So they can focus on quarterly instead of annually. In the 3-year rolling budget example I have shown you, so managers are effectively planning each month to look forward 3 years into the future. That's important. So they are constantly viewing the long run future of the organizations, and that tend to be more strategic in the work they do and the decision they make, because they have a 3 years window period and they can think about any strategic goals for the future. So the rolling budget also improved the relevancy of the data and perspective used in the master budget process as current data. Perspective and experiences are incorporated each month into the budget plan. This is another advantage. When they think about a rolling budget and they at the end of each quarter they reflect on their past performance so that they can minimize any overspend in the next round or next quarter, so they can use this information and then make them relevant to their future decision. So here, from organization's point of view, they are also very useful uh, um, to avoid an annual master budget planning event that can consume a large block of management time. So here, because they every quarterly, weekly, they monitor their performance. They don't have to wait for the annual event where they can discuss, what was the situation, what went wrong, and what should be done, what should have been done, and so they can spend a lot of, they can avoid spending a lot of their time to discuss yearly performance rather than they can do quarterly or weekly if they use rolling budgets. So another importantly, and it helps everyone constantly focus on the organizational strategy and how it is moving forward into the future, because you discuss quarterly, weekly, so you are continuously focusing on your strategic goal and action so that you can move forward to the future. What are the disadvantages? Disadvantages, I wouldn't say disadvantages mostly. I would say some limitations, that it really needs commitment across the organization to be in continuous budgeting mode. So you keep pushing people and keep reminding people about their goals every quarter, every week. The time and resources spent in the budgeting effort still represent time and resources not being invested in day-to-day operation. So it's not really saving time, but okay. But I would say I think it's very important to focus on this particular budgeting. So it is critical that the monthly budgeting process is designed to be as efficient as possible, and because rolling budget incorporate all day-to-day operations, and it helps them constantly monitoring their planning, controlling, and evaluating operations. That's really important. Okay, now so let's move on to a very well-known budget process for the public sector. Again, I don't have any empirical evidence on this tool whether private sector organizations use zero-based budgeting. If anyone know here, please let us know. But it is commonly used in public sector organizations. Why? I will explain shortly. So I think it's academically we say it is a simplified approach, because it really begins with the previous year budgets, determine what conditions as costs have changed, and then make incremental adjustment to the old budget in order to establish a new budget. So here So this is what we discussed before. A simple budgeting was like this. So we discussed about incremental budgeting, but zero-based budgeting is completely different. You assume everything, thinking about future or current, nothing from previous year's estimate. So you start with zero basis. This is why it calls zero-based budgeting. So you do not use any last year's performance to justify your next year's budgets. So organizations say whatever you want to spend next year, you must rely on what is going to happen next year and how you can make the budget without any looking into past. So how organization they do it? So basically, again, so it is also highly structured. Normally it is done for annual budget. They don't use any rolling budget for zero-based budgeting. It's absolutely impossible. It's quite different. So here we say it's an annual event, and then think about is they start with a blank page. So we know nothing about the past. Only thing we care about the future, and that let them put into the master budget plan. So, and then don't think about to roll over the budget for next year or carry forward the next year budgets, So because it's absolutely standalone budget. So how they do it? In theory, it begins with evaluating all current and proposed projects in the organization, and I have highlighted prioritizing projects based on relationship to the organization's evolving strategy. This is very important for us to remember that how we can prioritize. You can have, say, 5 items. You think, okay, I need money for these 5 items. Zero budgeting doesn't allow you to get money for all 5 items because money is limited, resources limited for government, and only way you can prioritize, you rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you look at your strategic goals, because strategy not necessarily they are stable, they are unchangeable. So strategy is evolving. So you can think about, okay, if we get new strategy, how much money we need, and then it depends on your analysis. So that's very important. Benefits and cost of each project are also considered in establishing what projects are cut or reduced and what projects are implemented or expanded. So here they also look at when you have ranking process here, priority process, then you need to look cost and benefit analysis, and then you establish your ranking. So that's the mechanism part. And the second part of this zero-based budgeting is the evaluation of projects becomes the core of the negotiations that encompass most budget process in the organizations. These negotiations are used to determine how resources are committed and shared across the organization to support priority projects. That's really important. Again, so because as I said, resources are limited for any organization, including the public sector, and then in terms of priorities, maybe say we have two departments in a university, two different departments, say accounting and then say management, and then accounting come up with say 5 projects, management come up with 5 projects. Then university think, okay, we cannot fund every aspect or every project for these two departments. They look at to the priority list and then they come together, and then negotiation takes place. And what are the essential resources that needed to implement their projects. So that's the zero-based budgeting process. So the other one is when the organization's project list predetermined and decisions made about next year's investments and spending, the detailed work of budget, building, sales, production, and cost schedule that can then begin. So that is again, so you look at project list and then you look at the next investment and spending, then you use this money you got allocated and then finish the study, finish the budget period, and then start again next year with zero money. So advantages is that it is extremely rigorous and strongly supports efficiency in the organizations. So comparing with incremental budgeting, it is carry forward each year. And the deliberate budgeting is much more effective and at controlling and reducing budgetary slack. Okay, now what is budgetary slack? And budgetary slack is also about setting goals and objectives by a person responsible at a lower KPI. So if you are a manager responsible for the budget and your budget is used to monitor your performance or evaluate your performance, then we always have a tendency as human to set a lower targets. So if university tells us, okay, you set your teaching satisfaction score targets, we wouldn't set a higher target, isn't it? We will never set 4.5. We say let's start with 3. So that is budgetary slack, because then everyone is an excellent teacher, If you exceed 3, you are brilliant. So that is budgetary slack. If you are given a responsibility to set your own goals and you set a lower target, then it becomes budgetary slack. But zero-based budgeting helps reduce that particular behavior. That because everything, the main idea is to think about, you have to justify your planned expenditure. You cannot say to university, I had this money last year, can I have 5% more this year? No. Even if you ask for more this year, you have to justify why you need this money. That is what we call it zero-based budgeting. What are the limitations? Of course, every system has limitations, every system has problems, So we think about when it comes to timing, people say, oh, it is so time consuming and more costly, you cannot carry forward any thing from last year. You cannot use last year's estimate. So it is everything is based on your subjectivity, on other stuff, So that is quite common for any organizations think about any particular systems. The second, what we can see here, in fact, the demands for zero-based budgeting can be so severe that some organizations will entirely avoid it or try to move so quickly through their process that key research and dialogue is skipped over. Yeah, it's again human behavior, and said some people say, okay, if organizations always ask for zero-based budgeting, sometimes people try to avoid it and they try to things move so quickly, and so discussions and dialogue, don't take place because of this time consuming and costly exercise. So here I think it's a suggestion from academic literature. Say, okay, one way to mitigate this cost of this methodology is to rotate the zero-based system across the organization over time. So it's not necessarily that every division must have a zero-based budgeting. So the suggestion here is to rotate the process within organizations, say maybe one third of this organization will have zero-based budgeting, and then next year the other part of the organization will have zero-based budgeting, and so on. So looking into this whole practice over a 3-year period of time. Now the question is, who is it for? I haven't mentioned this before. I think this whole idea, anyone knows where is it come from? So if you don't know it, the whole idea was originated in the United States back in 1976 when Jimmy Carter was the president of the United States. Jimmy Carter, as you can see, a politician discovered this budgeting tool. So he, back in 1976 to 1980, he initiated this idea that United States government departments spend a lot of money looking into their past, but they don't look into the rationales for spending this money during the current period or the future. So he initiated this idea that that United States public budgeting should be based on zero base. No 5% or 10% adjustment, and you must justify why you need this money for these particular items. So that is the history of this budgeting tool. So question is, who is it for? Of course, it is originally developed for government organization, but I would say public sector organizations can also use this money. So for organizations willing to invest in the rigor, zero-based budgeting methodology continues to be useful for organizations that need significant discipline to focus on back-on strategy and to reduce inefficient spending. As you can see now, current president of the United States, Donald Trump, he now introduced a new department to look after the public sector efficiency, which is called Department of Government Efficiency. So, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. So here I think you saw the battle between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump, and he was Elon Musk had a lot of issues with Donald Trump, although he was given the power to lead this Department of Government Efficiency. Now he's got no position there. There is a battle between politics, but the whole idea was to reduce wastage of public sector money. As you heard that he cut a lot of spending for developing countries and welfare budgets. Okay, now so we had talk about various tools and techniques. Now I'm going to focus on the. I'm not sure how long will it take. I don't mind whatever it takes, and then we will have more time for discussions. So here, what I really want, we need to focus here, public sector management reform, and then we try to relate this reform or legacy to budgeting methodologies for public sector organizations. So public sector, when it comes to public sector management, and or what we call it in today's businesses or today's public sector is new public management. So what we call it neoliberalism, where focus is more private sector style budgeting process for organizations. So here, what you can see here, the first bullet point says compliance and control versus results or outcomes. So traditional public sector accountability or public sector management focuses on compliance and control. Okay, we have this regulation. You must comply with the regulation. You cannot spend this money for a particular reasons, and then at the end of the period you will be evaluated, which is all about control. That is the traditional public sector. But today's public sector or contemporary public sector focuses on results or outcomes instead of looking into inputs. So results and outcomes is all about looking into the outputs and how those outputs impact community value creation. That is outcomes. Okay. So one example would be like in every country we have speed cameras for travelers on the road. So basically what we say here in Australia, we sometimes we say okay, government is using speed camera fines for raising revenues. So that is not the sole purpose of this speed camera. And government say no, our goal is to reduce road accident and ensure people's safety. So it doesn't matter whether you spend millions of dollars, but if they don't reduce accidents or save people's life, then it is a waste of the money. So outcome would be how speed cameras can save people's life or can ensure safety on our road. So that's the outcomes. And then the second legacy in the budgeting or public sector management is about legislative cycle. Most public sector organizations, as I mentioned, like government, we have annual development plan and then current budgets. Every country has annual budget by government, and then so there is a cycle, that cycle is legislative, that every public sector organization must have budgeting annual budget. And then we have a long-term plan for the government. Sometimes government has 10-year plan or 5 years plan. What do you call it? Annual development plan. So the importance of budgeted cycle in the recent past was gauged in terms of, so you can see denial of initiative and minimal devaluation of authority. And so because if you don't have any budgetary cycle, whether it could be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, and then people try to avoid initiatives. And also they try to minimize devolution of authority. Devolution of authority means that people at the bottom level who are involved in a practice and they try to avoid any authority or responsibility. The budget cycle also ensures compliance with mandated processes and that how budget should be used in planning, coordinating and controlling. So it significantly aligned with the compliance or rules and regulations. So concentration on inputs, not performance. As I mentioned, the traditional, say 10 years ago, and public sector organization, they only look into how they can spend the money. Now it's not about spending the money, how to improve performance, how to improve outcome. So, and then other part of the budget cycle was short-term planning, which frequently was both costly and efficient. So limitations of traditional budget, we say lack of integration, inflexibility, short-term, not performance outcomes oriented. If you recall, I mentioned this before in the beginning and or mid at the medium level of my presentation. Yes. So we talk about authority, responsibility, and accountability. And when it comes to accountability, we say accountability is essential to make individuals responsible. Without accountability, if you say, okay, our university don't have any student satisfaction survey or nothing, and people try to avoid everything. It was okay. I'm not officially responsible for anything. I don't officially accountable to anyone. I can come and do my job, and then I'm done. So that is not accountability. So accountability must be there in principle. So as I mentioned that we have new public sector reform, and then one of the fundamental premise of this reform is that greater authority and freedom must be given to managers and matched by corresponding levels of accountability. Because we now focus on outcome, as a result, you must give authority and freedom to make decisions at the bottom level. And also access to relevant information on performance, the role of financial experts. So when I say financial expert, I mean say accountants, it could be controllers, management accountants, or in Australia we call it business finance partner. Let me, I'm nearly there. So let me summarize the whole idea of new public management. I call it new public management ideas. Those ideas, if you are familiar with Wood, 1995 or 1999, 91, he wrote several articles on new public management ideas or attributes. So the whole idea of the new public management concept is all about doing better with less. So this is a new public sector model. You must do better with less resource. And also targeting needs more closely. So you think about the targets and you need to look into those very closely, whether you need this particular item to be funded for a particular period. And in Australia, we have national competition policy within the public sector. So what does it mean? It means that for any government services, for delivering to the public, government has open bids systems or tendering systems that both private sector and public sectors need to compete for a government job or projects. Traditionally, no private sector agencies are allowed to participate in the bid. Now, not only internal public sector organization, they must compete with private sector entities as well in the market. So there's a huge competition in the market. Cultural shifts in government focus. The cultural shift is a continuous improvement, more focus on outcomes rather than inputs, and employee empowerment. Greater employee empowerment so that people can improve their performance. The other tools or ideas relate to commercialization, corporatizations, and privatizations. I'm sure Indonesia has the same tendency, privatized public sector organizations which are not efficient or making any money or raising any revenue for the government. So privatize some public sector entities. And corporatizations introduce private sector style management framework for public sector organization, like things like corporate boards or CEO, something like that. And privatization, some organizations are fully privatized. And then other management ideal is to financial management framework, then chain and dimensions of accountability. We have in Australia several amendments to our Financial Accountability Act, and that act defines and what are the planning and controlling management framework should be for public sector organizations. Dimensions of accountability, let me go through this, looking into traditional and contemporary budgeting and then how they relate to accountability and fiduciary responsibility. This is the relationship comes from a relationship of trust between two parties, government and the community. That was the traditional accountability mentality. We always look into inputs. Okay, we have this money, we must provide our community or public this amount of services. We always look into inputs, but those days are gone. And so traditionally they used to look into 3 E's: economy, cost and quality, efficiency, input, output, and effectiveness, desired outcomes for administrative or program level projects. Okay, I'm nearly there. This the impact of public sector agencies of outputs and outcomes movement. This is important, and I have already edited 2 books on this reform. One for developed countries and one for developing economies. And if you Google search, you will find 2 books published by Ruthless, and there are several important chapters incorporated into those books, and you will find this information on Google search when you write down my name. And in that 2 books, we talk about lots of reforms from various countries and how they influence government budgeting, planning, and performance management. So here, again, giving you some evidence from Australian governments. In Australian governments, in most cases, we have devolution of authority, so that we have empowered lower level management to make their own budgets and to monitor their own performance. And in most cases, I'm sure I think Indonesia as well, we do have a lot of outsourcing of government agencies. Even in our Auditor General Office, public sector auditing, most public sector auditing is done by private sector auditors under the supervision of Auditor Generals. In Australia, we have Federal National Audit Office based in Canberra, and every state in Australia has their own Auditor General Office. But they don't do auditing mainly. They hire private sector auditors to do the job for them, and then they monitor all those reports and then discuss with individual agencies and then present those reports to the parliament through Public Accounts Committee. I'm sure I think Indonesia, Malaysia have the same practices. As I mentioned before, corporatization of commercial functions to resemble as closely as possible the private sector. So if you have a public sector agency corporate board, try to resemble closely with the private sector. What we call it private sector style management structure. And again, so Australia also has restructured government agencies to promote a competitive environment. As I said, competing with private sector for getting contract within their own sector. It's like, open invitation for everyone. And accountability or performance management system should focus on both qualitative and quantitative KPIs. So qualitative KPIs mostly on outcomes, and quantitative KPIs mostly on output. You can find out those. So another focus was on redirection of agency focus to a customer orientation. Like our university, public university, of course, Indonesia has the same, that we need to focus on student satisfaction. So our students are our customers. So university say students are our customers, and government say public or communities are our customers. So if you focus on that angle for your customer, then what you have to do, you need to make customers happy. How you can make happy? Through delivering quality services to the customers. And last, a preference for less government involvement, usually translated into less spending or reduced regulation. Yes, try to reduce so much red tapeism or regulatory constraints. Is the last one? Yes, this is the last slides, and I'm sure I think I've finished 8 minutes before 90 minutes allocated, Chris, and I now a couple of comments I like to make before I open this floor for questions and discussions. So key lessons, reflections. Key lessons is like when it comes to budgeting for a public sector agency, first thing you need to look at the accountability mechanisms. So accountability must be defined in details and clearly so that everyone knows about their own responsibility, and to do that authority must be given. So if you ask any government agency to make the budget from centrally directed initiatives, that is not empowerment. You have to give empowerment. You need to give people authority to make their own budget so that they can have self-evaluation tools developed by themselves, and then a greater outcome would be possible. So budgeting is not about only planning. Budgeting is all about controlling and reflecting. That reflection is important. How did we do better, or what went wrong? This is how we can say any individual reflection. You think about, okay, what did you do during the day? When you say when it comes to sleep, you go to sleep and lie down, think about it, what I've done today, how many bad things I have done, how many good things I have done, how I could have done better. So similarly, for any budgeting, you need to think about reflection, how we can make a better budget for the public and for the community. The final outcome of the value creation, how you can create public value. Public value creation means public is fully satisfied with government services, public is fully happy, and then they can live for their future, and they can have a sustainable growth in their individual family or in the country as a whole. So this is what I think I would say. Any budgeting or any accountability must be reflect on public value creation. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Zahirul, for the insightful and inspiring presentation, Prof. So, contemporary budgeting methodologies provide public sector organization with more strategic, flexible, and performance-oriented tools for managing resources, yeah, Prof. Yeah. And then traditional approach such as incremental budgeting are increasingly viewed as inadequate because they often encourage inefficiency and budgetary slack. So the role of essential effective budgeting depends on sound organizational structure with authority and responsibility for all base of operation clearly defined. So essentials of effective budgeting based on research and analysis with realistic goals, yeah, Prof. Okay. So we know welcome to open question and answer session, everyone. So for participants who would like to ask question, please either first type your question in the text box or click the raise hand button and introduce yourself before asking. And please open cam and open mic. So everyone, please to give question first to for Prof. Zahirul. Maybe I want to stimulating question, Prof. Zahirul. Uh, Prof, I have research in my last research, executive prepare budgets to make it easier to achieve local revenue target, like local tax, such as restaurant tax, hotel tax. So, based on your perspective, Prof, why do many public sector organizations still rely heavily on traditional incremental budgeting, even though uh, my research show it often leads to inefficiency and budgetary slack? Thank you, Prof.
And this is a very important question. And uh, to answer to your question is people say, okay, we do traditional budgeting, still use it because it's very simple to make this budget. We don't have to worry about a lot of issues. We don't have to collect a lot of information about uncertainties, risk, and other elements. So just to make it very simple, and it is less complicated, it is less expensive, and it is, I think, is understood by almost every people. This is the whole rationale, because it's the simplicity and less time consuming. And some people say, I don't say it is more practical, but I think it's more practical would be look into risk and uncertainty elements, because as I said, every second is uncertain, isn't it? So we think about, okay, what is going to happen if something changes tomorrow? So with the result, and people try to avoid this complexity. They say, okay, let's focus on very simple, how much money we had last year, how much money we can get. They don't do any market research or any competitive research. They just think, okay, maybe I'm happy with say only 2% increase or the same percentage. So it is popular because of less complex and easy to prepare and less time consuming. That's it.
Okay, Prof. So, what are the key behavior to prevent this practice, that practice?
Thing is, it you have to. I think it's very important to have to let people the limitations of this traditional budget, and how you let these people. You have to you provide training and professional development training through various experts about contemporary budgeting, and then they come and deliver training sessions to people. And you have to, once you educate people, and then they will get motivated. This okay now, because at the moment they have no idea about those new models and how they improve their planning and decision making process. If you can educate people with good few sessions, and then everyone will be motivating to embark on these new tools. So you have to come up with this idea how we can do some training and skills development for people in the organizations. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you. So, insightful response throughout the discussion. Um, so everyone, please type your question in chat box to our guest speaker, or you can open mic and open cam to ask about your question.
And if anyone has any story to share, they can do it. No, any,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Prof, uh, does digital transformation, such as real-time data analytics and integrated financial system, uh, can enabling to modern budgeting methodologies like zero-based budgeting, maybe, or activity-based budgeting. So, what do you think, Prof, about that?
Yeah, this is, I think it's a good question again, because now we have, let's say, blockchain methodology, and we have cloud-based filing system. So cloud-based filing and blockchain, because they record everything live. Like we share OneDrive, Google Drive, they are very light. So some organizations in some countries, they use blockchain or cloud-based filing system, recording system. So because information about their activities is available anytime, anywhere in the world. So people have 24-hour access. So traditionally, you don't have to do, okay, I make the budget, send it to other people by email, they open the document and read it, then they send their approval. No, it can be done live, isn't it? So digitalization makes our life very easier. So it is very, I think, is useful. For example, you have a zero-based budgeting and you open the document, then everyone can put their comments, feedbacks, live, and then so it becomes a highly interactive modeling. So and not only zero-based budgeting, even think about a rolling budget, and people can work together. So they shouldn't say, okay, we don't have expertise, but it's nowadays everything window based, and you can do a lot. And then when it comes to data analytics, because data analytics now useful to collect like your information from formalized annual documents, things like income summary, income statement, statement of assets and liabilities, and those are highly structured information, isn't it? But for data analytics, help you to collect unstructured data from various sources, including websites, and then you can use them and then get a huge information and then create visualization. And say, for example, you can create a balance scorecard. Everyone can see the balance scorecard. We call it digital dashboard. So you can have a digital dashboard and digital budgeting, then everyone can see what is happening, and the figures are changing continuously. So technology is there. We have to use them to make an effective budgets. We have a question here.
Yes, we have question in chat box, Prof. Excuse me, Mr. Chris and Professor Ho. I want to ask a question about in period of economic instability. How can governments effectively balance budgetary flexibility with expenditure control to ensure both fiscal discipline and the ability to respond to emerging needs? Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, I think this is a very important question, because this is where we have new public sector. So traditional public sector has a annual budgeting process, and then you monitor the performance of budgets at the end of the financial period. But nowadays, because you have a lot of uncertainties, market is not stable for various sectors in the public sector. So you can have a flexible budget. Flexible budget, like you look into your original target, and when you know your uncertainty, anything happen, so you can adjust your original budget, come up with another flexibility. So flexibility budget would be a useful tool to reduce uncertainty and to address those instability. So you can have a budget level for various level of activity, say 3 or 4 level of activity, and then each level of activity can address some uncertainty or any instability. Instead of having a static budget, you can have flexible budget. And of course, within flexible budget, you can have activity based budgeting, so that you can reduce uncertainty or reduce instability, and then you can have more, I think, is effective fiscal performance, and that would be useful. I hope I managed to answer your questions, Olivia.
Okay, Prof. Maybe for Elvia, would you like to give any back to Prof. Zahirul?
Yes, yes, Mr. and Professor, thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Olivia.
Prof, I want to ask again for about budgeting,
Yeah.
about behavioral and governance reflection, Prof.
Mhm.
Budgeting is not only technical exercise, Prof, but also strongly influenced by organizational politics and behavior. So how can leaders reduce dysfunctional behavior such as uh, slack creation, maybe budget gaming within a budgeting process or processes, Prof?
Yes, this is Chris. Another very good question you asked, because I haven't covered this aspect in my discussions. So budgeting is, you are right that this is what I believe. Budgeting is not only a technical phenomenon; it is socially and politically constructed. So let me explain how. So first, if we say budgeting is socially constructed, especially for public sector, it has to be in the public sector. Socially constructed means budgeting is done for public sector. Budgeting is done for people. So people, they belong to the society, and people we have, when it comes to stakeholders within the community, you have different kind of stakeholders. So when it comes to preparing a budget for a particular government area, they need to look at the who are the stakeholders, external stakeholders, who would benefit from this budget. Then they need to think about how they can be considered into making the budget. And then in Australia, I'll give you a very practical example. When city councils, local city councils, they come up with any project or initiative for the community, and then they organize what we call it here, town hall meeting for all the community, open invitation to everyone, come to the town hall, and they present the local city council projects, and they talk about this amount of money they need, and they ask for feedback. So community get involved in the whole process. This is why it is socially constructed. And then another dimension of your question is politically constructed. Budget is also political game, as you know. So let me talk about internal politics within the government agencies. Say you have, like, a particular government department, say Department of Defense, for example, any country. So Department of Defense has many subdivisions, and then people play politics, which division will get more money than others. So because money is limited, And so they need to think about, okay, so politically, if one group is very powerful than others, they get the most allocation because play politics, isn't it? It's like a university contents, if some academics, they are very highly powerful, so they get the most of the benefits from the top management because they can convince, they can force, isn't it? So this is why it is called that budgeting is also political process. And so some organization, because of internal politics, they organize an open-ended discussions so with all internal stakeholders, and they discuss and then come up with a solution that then everyone is happy. So it's socially constructed, it's politically constructed, it is also institutionally constructed because there are a lot of internal and external institutions play significant role in formulating the budget. So this is how you need to look at budgeting as a whole. Thanks for this good questions, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Um, Insightful responses. So, anyone, would you like to ask question? Okay, okay. I think no
That's
question,
okay.
Prof. Or maybe we next to um we were to extend to my MC, Prof. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Hope, for the
Thank you.
insightful presentation and your thoughtful responses throughout the discussion. I think your uh, perspective has significantly depends our understanding of contemporary budgeting methodologies and application in the public sector. So, as we conclude the Q&A session, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude for your valuable time, contribution, and willingness to share your expertise with us today, Prof. So
Thank you.
the session, I will looking forward to Miss Ria Ekanindya as master ceremony for today's session. I will give to Mrs. Ria Ekania to uh, stepping next this session, please.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chris. Thank you, Professor Zahirul, for very interesting discussion. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the presentation of certificates of appreciation to the speakers. ICT, please show your. Yes. Okay, give a
Thank,
round of applause for Professor Zahirul.
thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this
Thank
event.
you, Prof. Zahirul.
Okay. We would like to express our deepest gratitude and appreciation to Professor Zahirul Hoque for sharing his knowledge and experience at today's lecturing event. We hope that this cooperation and collaboration will continue in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Ria. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everyone, for participating in this event. I know that sometimes it's you have a lot of questions that you don't have to ask, but if you need any help in any form, just contact me through Chris, then I will be happy to help you. Thank you, Ria, and thank you, Chris, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, dear all
Thank you
participants,
very much.
Thank
it
you.
feels like the time has passed since we began the second series of international lecturing. We would like to express our gratitude to all participants who have actively participated from the beginning to the end of this event. We hope that the material presented today can broaden your knowledge, expand your perspective, and contribute significantly to the development of public sector accounting, both in academic and professional context. With the word Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, we officially close today a lecturing event. We
Yes,
look
so
forward
much.
to seeing you at the next academic event. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you, Prof.
Walaikum.
Zahirul. Thank you so
Waalaikumsalam,
much.
everyone. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye, Prof. Zahirul. Thank you very much.
Recording stop.